Hey there everybody, Professor Cloud here. This is another getting started guide for Elden Ring. This time we are going to be focusing on an archer build. And let's jump right in and I'll talk through what is going to make up an archer build as we get started with a brand new game. An archer build is going to be focusing obviously primarily on the bows. However, if you watch any archer in any movie or read about any archer, every archer has a secondary weapon beyond their bow, whether it's a short sword, whether it's a dagger, whether it's something else entirely. So what we're going to be doing is building out an archer that primarily focuses on two different bow types, long bows and short bows, and then has a secondary weapon that they can use whether they're on horseback or out of a boss fight. You're going to still want to use your bows in boss fights. Now, based on the starting stats of the different classes, we're going to pick the samurai, which means that this is going to be very, very similar to my getting started guide for the true samurai build. And that's because we want the dexterity to be at a level where we can use a secondary weapon that is a somber weapon. That way we can focus all of our smithing stones for upgrades on the bows and only worry about upgrading the somber weapon with somber smithing stones. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is the somber weapon that we're going to choose is available in early game, but it is not very good in mid to late game, so you may want to swap it out for something else. But to get you started, to get your collection set up from a smithing stone and somber smithing stone perspective, rune farming, and get yourself in the best position for that first big boss Margit, this is going to be a great way to get started. So we're just going to call this person Archer. And we'll go ahead and leave everything else alone. We should always choose the golden seed for your keepsake. If this is your first time playing or your second time playing, and you're fairly new to the game, you don't know where things are, that's what this guide is for. The golden seed is absolutely the best keepsake for those individuals. I'm not going to worry about anything else at this point. We'll do a little bit more of an in-depth view of the stats when we go and level up for our first time. Now, this guide is going to be made up of a number of different videos, each one of them in focusing on different sections. These first two are just getting you set up. The first two sections are collecting the right materials, not even focusing on leveling up at all, but just focusing on collecting runes, collecting materials, so that your weapons are at the right level. Because the weapon level is the most important thing with respect to damage. You are only going to get 1 to 3 extra points of damage each time you level up your primary stat. So in this case, it would be dexterity. And that's going to be dependent upon scaling, obviously, of the weapon. But still, usually 1 to 3 is the most you're going to get. Whereas if you go from +1 to +2 of a given weapon, you could get anywhere from 5 to 15 points of additional damage. Again, depending upon scaling, and sometimes even more. So let's go ahead and get moving. Now, I am going to go ahead and make a couple of quick changes here real quick. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. And that is, I am going to remove the shield. I'm going to leave the arrows the way that they are. And I'm going to put the bow as my secondary weapon for right now in the right hand. And then for this first boss, because you're meant to die anyway, I'm not going to even waste any arrows. Now, one thing to keep in mind with respect to the bows, you are going to have a much more difficult run than pretty much any other weapon because of damage output. there just isn't a lot of damage output with respect to the bows. But the bows do give you an option to use a couple of very interesting Ashes of War or skill weapon arts. The longbow comes by default with the Mighty Shot skill, and the short bow, which we'll pick up very early on, comes with the Barrage skill. And both of those are very important to have. They will absolutely help you in boss fights. So let's go ahead and put our... Okay, they're already there. We have already got a golden seed. But let's go ahead and deal with this tutorial area. Now, the first thing I highly recommend, as you start with this build, go ahead and use your katana. And you might go, well, Brian, we're doing or Professor, we're doing a archer build. Yes, but you only have 20 arrows to start with. And you'll run out very, very quickly. We will switch to the bow when it comes to the tutorial boss. But for these first few areas, or first few enemies, I am just going to worry about using the katana. Don't forget, we've got the golden seed, so let's go ahead and take care of using that. Add charge to flask. That's what the golden seeds are for. Keep in mind that it is not always going to be one seed per flask addition. Sometimes it's gonna go 1 1, 2 2, 3 3, and then I think it's 4s from that point on. Now, if you do want to two-hand your weapon, which obviously you will for the longbow, hit Y and then the right bumper, or left bumper if you're carrying it in your left hand. Alright, we're just going to sprint through here because of the archer up above. Grab me a rowan fruit. Crafting is going to be extremely important for archers, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. That will not always happen with the katana. The katana does not do a lot of poise damage. But do keep it in mind. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use that art that I was talking about. Or that skill. Because of that reason. That was 153 points of damage. Okay. Switch back to the sword. The jump attack will absolutely be your friend, even as an archer. Supposedly, the jump attack is harder for bosses and enemies to defend against. So for those enemies that do have a tendency to dodge out of the way, they may be able to, you might be able to get that shot off if you're jumping it. But that's going to be primarily for the short bow. I don't highly recommend it for the long bow. Alright, so we've got our first boss coming up. And what we're going to do is see if we can't use the Mighty Shot with this boss to get things started. And then we'll go from there and see how things go. Look at that. Very nice. Barely had to move an inch. That's how good the archer can be. But this is a tutorial boss. Let's be honest here. This is not what you should be expecting for every single boss fight. The other thing to keep in mind, and the reason why you're going to have, or I am going to have, two different bows, is because the short bow is much, much faster. You're not going to do as much damage, but you're going to be able to get a lot more arrows off in those short windows when you have attack options with a specific boss. The other reason you want both bows is because of the different skills. The barrage skill that I mentioned comes by default with the short bow. That skill is extremely difficult to find in the game, so having both bows gives you both of those skills right at the very beginning. There are some additional Ashes of War that you can find out in the world that are related to bows, but they are few and far between. The only two in particular that I would recommend are Sky Shot, and that's going to be when you are at distance and you've got a lot of enemies, or a big enemy that's part of a group that you want to get rid of, that kind of thing. The other one is, I think it's called Energy Shot, which is basically a magic arrow. So even if you don't have any magic arrows, those being called dwelling arrows, you will be able to get access to something like that with that particular Ash of War. Alright, so I'm going to skip talking to this guy. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to head to that church right there, so that we can meet up with the merchant, and that's where we're going to start to talk about the different arrows that are going to be available, because that, along with the two different bow types, are your big changes in how you approach a fight. Let's see, let's drop down. By the way, those Roa fruits that we have been picking up are a craftable, something that can be used for craftable items, and specifically, once we get our horse, which is the main key for this first video, you will use the Roa fruits to create a craftable item that will heal your horse, because your horse can take damage just like you can. Alright, so make sure when you get to this church, you head to the front. There is a free rune right here. Excellent. Then head back here to the anvil to pick up your first smithing stone. You will need 2 to upgrade the longbow at least once. And then this is our first merchant.
Tarnished. I can see. And I can also see that you're not after my throat. Then why not purchase a little something? I am Caelid, purveyor of fine goods.
So, let's take a look at the purchase window. In this purchase window, there are a few things to point out. The first is every merchant that you run into will carry arrows, standard arrows. 20 runes a pop. You can only carry 19 of them at a time. So, in this early part of the game, you're going to see I'm going to use my katana a lot more than you would expect because I can't afford to buy arrows. The second thing to point out is this crafting kit. This is what's going to allow us to craft things, including different arrow types. Now, one of the things that you will find in the article that is attached to this video series is that I have provided you with a list of all of the different requirements for crafting different arrow types. Not all arrow types, just the ones that you'll need to worry about. In addition to the crafting kit, which just allows you to craft it all, there are also these cookbooks. These are what provide the recipes for different types of things. So if we look at the Warrior's Cookbook 1, it gives us access to bone arrows. Warrior's Cookbook 2, nothing related to arrows. Now, you'll see here bone arrows. You can craft bone arrows. They don't do as much damage as the standard arrows. It's not worth crafting them. There are other types of arrows out in the world that are also sold by merchants. And one of the things that we will do in one of the last videos of the series is we are going to go through a very dangerous area of the world just so that we can get access to those merchants. One of them sells fire arrows, one of them sells poison arrows, so you'll never need to craft them. In addition, the bone arrows have a drop-off. The regular arrows do not. The bone arrows, no matter which kind you're using, do have a drop-off at around 50 feet, which also makes them much more difficult and requires you to stay closer to your enemy than you should really need to. So, as we go through this series, you're going to see me going to locations for no other reason than to talk to a merchant and get him on my map so that I can go back to him later and collect fire arrows. Now, the next thing that we're going to do in this video is we're going to go get our horse, get a few crafting materials, and then we're going to stop the video at Stormhill Shack, and we'll pick up from there so that all we're going to do in the second video is picking up crafting materials. Or actually upgrade materials, excuse me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to pop the runes that I just picked up outside the church.
For now.
That gets me an extra 400. The reason I'm doing that is because I need 600 to buy the short bow. We're going to go do that first. But I'm going to use the 400 to buy some additional arrows. Okay, so now I've got 34.
Goodbye.
Alright. Now we're going to go down and buy the short bow. The short bow is 600 runes. And it is all the way down here at a merchant on the beach. Now, I could come back here and do it later if I wanted to, but I'd rather have it for the first area where we're really going to focus on killing people, in case I need that extra speed. So right down there is where we're going to be going. And specifically, we're going to be going around this corner and underneath of that arch. But first, we need to get down there. Now, the great thing about the maps in this game versus other FromSoft games is that you can warp at any time. So as soon as you find one of those sites of grace that we've been sitting at, you're going to be able to warp back there. So as soon as I buy my short bow, I will be able to warp back to the church, and we'll be in good shape. Alright, so let's make it over to that merchant that I just showed you, and then we'll warp back to the church and head to the location where we're going to get our horse and start our collecting. Now, for these guys, just run away. You are not ready to deal with them yet. They will be very easy later in the game. Trust me. Anytime you see butterflies, make sure to pick them up. They're also part of the crafting process.
What do you need? I don't want any...
So he has the short bow. He is the only one that I have found that actually sells the short bow. So we've got that now.
All done? Well, be on your way then.
And we're going to head back to the church. Oh, I forgot to sit at the... Okay. My bad. I forgot to sit at the church's site of grace. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a quick switch to my equipment to pull out the longbow and put in the short bow. And you'll notice just at the top, over top of where my flask is, there is now a new name called Barrage. And that is the skill of the short bow. Now, what it allows you to do, and I'll actually show you here in a second as soon as I get to the Site of Grace, because then I can sit at it, and it is going to... Okay, one thing I forgot to mention. Ashes of War skills require focus points, magic, mana. The Mighty Shot was the one that we used from the longbow. For the short bow, very, very quick shots. I can now sit at the Site of Grace, and my magic has been restored. Okay. Now, next thing that we're going to do is we are going to head to a set of ruins and a grace point where we're going to get our horse. We're also going to kill some soldiers here. So we're going to do this in a very stealthy way, which is pretty typical of an archer. An archer cannot always stay at distance. They try, but not always can it be done. So, in those times when you can't, this is where, at least for now, the katana comes into play. Nice single backstab. I'm just going to clear out some of these soldiers for no other reason, really, than to get their runes. Now, one of the things that I will call out here in this video series is that I am not doing a tremendous amount of exploration. I know where the caves are, I know where the catacombs are, I know where the bosses are in this area. I want you to find them on your own. This is just a way for you to get started quickly using this particular build. It is not meant to show you every single... And I messed up. But you can get away from them. And there we go. I find stealth to be one of the greatest additions to the FromSoft games. They added it into Sekiro, although they didn't really take advantage of it, I don't think, as well as they should have. By the way, if you should ever see any of these glowing skulls, roll over top of them, and you get a free golden rune. It's only worth 200, but you collect enough of them, it equals up to a nice level. Okay. So we cleared out the area. The next thing is to go to the next Site of Grace and get access to our horse. So we run here along the wall, and you'll see there's a set of ruins here. We're going to clear those ruins, and we're going to get the chest that they're protecting. We don't have to. What's in that chest is actually not important to us. But it gets us runes that we can use for leveling up. So let's go ahead and sit at our Site of Grace. And I'm going to let you listen to this on your own. But this is where we get access to our horse.
Have you a sir, but I can play turning to aid you. You need own to the foot. Then it's settled. Summon me. I bequeath.
Basically, she allows you to level up. She gives you the ability to level up. She also gives us access to the horse.
It will summon torrent. Treat him with...
Okay, I'm going to pass time until morning. Things happen at night. That's all I'm going to say to you. That don't happen during the day. Okay, first thing... I did it again. First thing is... I am going to put... No. My steed whistle in that location. So now whenever I hit Y, I can actually pull up the D-pad and call up my horse. The next thing is I'm going to start taking out all these soldiers. And I'm going to do this, the stealth mechanic, again because of the fact that I have limited arrows. But if I do accidentally aggro an enemy, then I will make sure to pull out my bow then. Now, keep that jump move in mind for people who do have shields, because once we get our real secondary weapon for the build, that will come in very handy, because it will stagger them, remove the shield, and allow you to finally do damage. Alright, I'm going to sit here and wait for this guy walking down the road to turn around so that I can, or get to his endpoint so that I can backstab him. Again, only reason I'm doing this is because I'm low on arrows. If I had plenty of arrows and plenty of runes to buy them with, then that would be a different story. Another glowing skull. Alright, now, the next thing that we absolutely needed to do here, no matter what, was to get this item right here. That is a map piece. You are going to find map pieces throughout the world. They will help you, let you know where you're going, really, to be honest. So it's important that you find them, and we will absolutely be collecting them as we go. And you notice I am going to the back of these caravans. The caravans were something that were shown in all of the promotional material that came out for the game. They all hide something. Each caravan is different. Alright, so we now need to go to the other side. Okay. The use of the bow to attract a individual enemy works extremely well for some particular reason, and I've tried this on numerous enemies in numerous areas around the game. Damn it, that's not what I wanted to do. Alright, I'm going to go back and hide myself, because I want to show you the right way. even when they are right next to one another, as these two just were, I can actually attract the wolf and not attract the soldier. So I'm going to wait for them to turn around and do it then. Now, because I'm hidden, he had no idea where the shots came from. Now, I did attract a couple of guys, no big deal. We'll run for it. And hide. And as long as you stay out of eye shot long enough, you'll be in good shape. One thing to notice, you did see that guy going side to side. That's going to dodge your arrows. Be aware of that. It is very, very annoying that the hitboxes of the enemies are extremely small when they start that side-to-side motion. You almost have to wait for them to stop, or, you know, be prepared for them to... Oh, crap. Be prepared for them to stop, like, kind of... There should be one more back here. We'll grab him, and then we'll get what's in the chest of the ruins. Every ruins is hiding some kind of a treasure. Some of them are very valuable. Most of them, though, will have, you know, some kind of a weapon, some kind of a spell, some kind of a Ash of War, potentially. Get down to the bottom, and we have ourselves a chest. And this one happens to have an Ash of War called Storm Stomp that we could put onto our katana if we wanted to, and the whetstone. The whetstones are used for upgrading. However, because of the fact that we're going to be upgrading bows and we're going to be upgrading somber weapons, the whetstones aren't nearly as important. There are a lot of them out in the world, and they provide different abilities that you can attach, or affinities that you can attach to your weapon, thereby providing different scaling for your weapon. That is just the basic whetstone, but there's, for example, a fire whetstone. There's a magic whetstone, and so on, that provide different abilities and affinities. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I said I was going to bring this up. Here in our status, you can see all of the attack powers, all of our attributes, and so on. Because of the fact that we're going to be using bows, the dexterity is going to be the primary attribute. However, if you want to be able to take any kind of damage, you're also going to need to increase vigor over time. The somber weapon that we're going to be getting here in the next video is also is a dex-based weapon. So the very first thing we'll need to do to be able to even use that weapon is we will need to level up dex once. So we will in fact do that. And then with respect to our weapons, the short bow here, as you can see, has extremely bad scaling. This is the one big problem with being an archer. Both the short bow and long bow, as you upgrade them, the scaling will improve, but they will never improve above the letter D. D as in David, in either strength or dex. So you are always going to be doing low damage. I will talk about different ways that you can increase your damage output via talismans that can be attached in this slot. You can think of talismans much like the rings were in the original FromSoft games, but you're still never going to get the damage output that you get from great swords or anything like that. Your primary focus is going to be staying away from the enemies so that you can continuously do damage without having to worry about being hit. Alright, now that we've got our whetstone and we've cleared the ruins, let's go get our first... Actually, there is a grace point that we want to get right up here. Then we're going to go get our first set of upgrade materials beyond what we got at the church. We're going to be going up to Storm Hill, which is right up there. Get back on my horse to make this a little bit faster. One of the things this game provides is these air pockets that you can see right here that will allow you to jump higher. Also called a spirit spring. Whee! Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get myself to a safe place so that I can get a view on where the materials are that I was talking about. Alright, so right up here, you can see a statue that's glowing. That is going to, if it breaks open, which we can trigger by one of the trolls walking around, it will provide a large number of smithing materials. Unfortunately, we can't break it open ourselves. Come on, dude, turn around. Okay. Now we just run around. There we go. Now, the one thing, they can shoot out air pockets. So you are going to need to run around a little bit. There is a shack here with a site of grace, so we'll jump off for that. There's also another shining... By the way, these shining skulls are random. They just show up. I've actually seen them appear on the map. Alright, so we're going to talk to this guy. This guy sells Ashes of War, but none that are available for the bow. So really only thing you need to worry about is if you want to use a secondary weapon that is not a somber weapon.
Yeah, it takes me back. Any interest? All I know. Now's the time.
So as you can see, there's a large number of Ashes of War that he provides, but they all attach to either shields or swords of some kind. Okay, we're going to get ourselves to our stopping point here at the end of this video, which is Stormhill Shack. And what we'll do is we'll bring up the map. And it should be right about there. The map provides a lot of great information, so make sure that you're aware of that. Not only does it show all of the sites of grace that we have sat at, but it also provides you some additional information. So, for example, that merchant that we talked to that sold us the short bow is here on the map, Nomadic Merchant. That's one of the reasons why, in a future video, we're going to be going and getting and just talking to a bunch of merchants in a very, very dangerous area so that we can get access to them later. These bright cave-like locations. These are caves. It's not the only types of caves that are available, but caves that have upgrade materials. We'll be visiting them later, but once you see them on your map, keep them in mind. You'll notice there's another cave right there. This is an actual cave that has a site of grace in it. I didn't go inside of it, but it is there. We walked right by it, so therefore it showed up on our map. Additional hotspots will show up from time to time, especially as we add in additional sections to the map. There will also be, we can't see one at the moment, but there will also be in the big brown, undefined areas, a little icon that lets us know where a map piece happens to be located. And I'll point that out in the next video. Alright, so let's go ahead and make it to Stormhill Shack. And that'll be a good stopping point. Who's shooting at me? Alright, so this is going to be our stopping spot for the end of this video. A couple of things to talk about. First is this item up here, if I remember correctly, is a stone sword key. There are going to be certain areas of certain dungeons that can only be opened via stone sword keys. Some take one, some take two. So whenever you see one, grab it, keep a hold of it. There's usually a special item behind the fog wall that's being protected by the stone sword key. The next thing is this young lady right here is very important. I'm not going to tell you why, but make sure that you talk to her all the way through her conversation path, and she will end up in the central area of the game, much like the Firelink Shrine is in Dark Souls 3, Majula in Dark Souls 2. She will end up in that location, and we'll get there at some point in the near future.
Everyone.
I'm not gonna. I'll let you listen to her conversation.
You're all like heading to some entice while that, but I don't have. It's scary. I want to. I'm nothing. Oh, can you tell?
So she gives you your first ash. This is a summon ash. If this is your first playthrough of the game, learn to use them. Don't be stubborn. Learn to use them. Try the bosses without them first. 5, 10 times. But if you start to struggle, figure out what ash is best for you. You're going to collect a lot of different ashes over your playthrough. I'm 90 hours into the game and I have not even come remotely close to collecting them all. But find what ashes work for you and use them whenever you feel frustrated or whenever you feel like you have to. So she gives you the first one.
Braver than, and the spirits look like they'll be glad if you were willing to. It was a pleasure. Oh, tell them I am fine again.
Okay. That should be the end. Yes, that is the end of her conversation. There is a secondary reason for finishing off her conversation. The next time you come back here, she will be gone, and she will have dropped a golden seed. So if you want to max out on the number of flasks that you have, it's important that you talk to her all the way through her conversation path. Okay. We're going to sit here at our site of grace. We're going to level up so that we can actually use the weapon that we're going to get in the next video. We're going to level up our dexterity to 16. And as you just noticed, me leveling up dexterity, which is the primary stat for bows, only upped the pointage of damage for the sword by 1 point. It didn't even increase the damage for the bow because the damage scaling is so bad. Over time, it will improve, but not tremendously so. And as I said, I have plans in this video series for you to be able to increase your damage output using a talisman. So, this is where we're going to wrap up this video. In the next video, we're going to go to a completely new area of the map, and we're going to do nothing but collecting stuff that is out in the world. We're going to be getting our somber weapon to replace the katana, and we're going to be getting a crap ton of upgrade materials that we'll be able to use to increase the level of our short bow, our longbow, and the somber weapon that we'll be picking up. Plus, we're going to be adding to the map, which is always fun. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, in this segment, we're going to start the collection process. We're going to have 2 straight segments in a row where we're almost going to be doing nothing but collecting map pieces, golden seeds, upgrade materials, things along those lines. We're also, of course, going to be opening up the map so that you can actually see the starting areas that we're going to be focusing in. So the first thing that we're going to do is make a quick trip back down to the starting area, and we're going to go south. And in going south, we're actually going to pick up a few things along the way, as well as open up some more of the map. So what we're going to do is we're going to start back here to Geel Lake North. And the first thing that we're going to do is travel down to about here. And, sorry, let me make sure I remove that. Because there is a upgrade material that we want to pick up. Then we're going to travel over to here to get another grace point before we head even further south and open up what is called the Wheeping Peninsula. So let's go ahead and get on the mount and make our way. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and I've mentioned this before, things do change at night. So it's going to be up to you as to decide when you're deciding to do things at night, when you're deciding to do things during the day. In addition, how much farming do you want to do for runes? You'll notice I just did a little bit right here. Not a lot, just a little bit. One of the great things is that when you do kill groups of enemies, I just picked up a new Ash of War. There are 3 different kinds of scabbards out in the world. Sorry, not scabbards, scarabs out in the world. That was what I just killed, that white one. There is white, red, and blue. Reds return your Flask of Crimson Tears, your healing flasks. Blue ones return your Cerulean flasks, which helps with the recovery of mana or focus points. And then the white ones always have something hidden within them, some kind of either Ash of War. I've found somber smithing stones, things along those lines, sometimes spells. Every once in a while, there will also be invisible ones, and invisible ones usually have something really special, really special Ash of War, a really special weapon, things along those lines. I just did a little bit of killing right there with my katana. That is the reason for having a secondary weapon beyond just your bows. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the math. How many arrows are you gonna spend to kill whatever enemy it might happen to be. And if the runes that you're going to get back for killing that enemy are not as high as what you spent on the arrows, well then there's no point in using your arrows, is it? So right there, I knew the value of killing them with my sword. Now, I just picked up a smithing stone right there on the bridge. We've now got another smithing stone right here. This is a somber smithing stone. So when we get that weapon in the next segment, we'll be able to start upgrading it almost immediately. Alright, so we're going to continue along this path along the lake so that we can get to another grace point. And of course I'm going to be collecting things along the way as I can. To get to the next site of grace, and as you can see, we've got the gold dust letting us know where exactly it is. You do have to get off your horse in order to activate a site of grace. Alright, there we go. Now, the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be heading south. There is a bridge right here that is currently being protected by soldiers. There are some nice items on that bridge, and we'll get some nice runes for killing the soldiers. Eventually, though, we want to get down further so that we can actually go to the Wheeping Peninsula. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and pass right through the bridge so that we can get the map piece and see what it is that we're looking at. Then we'll come back, we'll clear the bridge, get everything on it before ending for the next segment. Okay. So we're just going to go right along this road. You can kill this guy if you want. The easiest thing when you're on horseback is to lock on. It makes it a lot easier to swing around and keep hitting a particular enemy. Again, doing all of this to save money so that I'm not wasting it on arrows. Save the arrows for the big boss fights. And the larger enemies that you want to stay away from. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pick up this site of grace over here real quickly, called the Wheeping Peninsula. And then get right back up on the horse. And we're going to just head down this road. There's a quest line that starts right there if you want. We should actually have more of the map. We do. I'm going to continue on down south as much as I can. There are a couple of items here that I can pick up along the way. There are also a few dogs. The short bow is tremendously faster. Oops, that's not what I wanted. There actually is, depending upon your specific playstyle, there actually is a weapon in here called the Morning Star. Does blunt damage. Nice weapon. Especially against very armored enemies. Alright, and then we're just going to run right through here. Pick that up. Here's another one of those white scarabs. That gives you Mighty Shot. So if you wanted to put Mighty Shot instead of on your longbow, you wanted to put it on your short bow, you absolutely could. And again, we're going to continue down this road. And here's another site of grace and a merchant. So let's make sure we get them on the map. And just like the other merchants, he's absolutely going to have arrows. But he also has other things. So make sure to take a look at every single one of the merchants that you run into. He happens to sell great arrows if you should ever decide that you want to try the great bow. Absolutely. He also sells a single cracked pot, which you may want as a craftable item. There are going to be two major types of craftable items that you as an archer are going to want to have access to. Three. One everybody should do, and that's the creating of the craftable items that either heal you or remove some kind of an effect. So the boluses that remove poison, the boluses that remove rot, the boluses that remove bleed, and so on. Then, of course, as I talked about, the healing items for Torrent, your horse. The next are pots. Think of them as bombs. They have numerous different kinds. Fire, poison, rot, bleed. There is a sleep bomb that for a very specific set, and I'm not going to tell you more, you can look it up for yourself, that for a very specific set of bosses, that sleep becomes very, very effective and makes it a lot easier for you to kill a particular boss. So having cracked pots allows you to craft bombs. The more cracked pots you have, the more bombs that you're able to carry. So cracked pots become very important. Keep that in mind for the future. You'll also notice with this merchant, there's a stone sword key. Stone sword keys have different costs for different merchants. I've seen them as low as 2,000, like you see here, but there's always a limited number with the merchants. And then I've seen them as high as 4,000 in a couple of other places. So if you ever need a stone sword key quickly, you might be able to get one from a merchant. Real quickly, I am going to buy some additional arrows because I have the runes to do so. Okay. But again, for the moment, while I'm still getting catching up on rune costs and things like that, things are still low. I'm still going to stay with sword for now. Alright, so we are here, and you'll see the Nomadic Merchant is currently on my map. This is the icon that I was talking about that shows there's a map piece. So that is the Wheeping Peninsula map piece. We're going to go pick that up. Immediately after that is another golden seed, and we're going to pick that up before leaving the Wheeping Peninsula. For now. So back up onto our horse, and let's head to the map piece. Now, one of the reasons why I'm not going to be doing much more in the Wheeping Peninsula for now is further down this path there is a golem that is going to be shooting very large arrows at us. There it was. And we really don't want to get hit by one of those right now. Alright, the golden seed is right up here. For the most part, he can't hit us up here. So we're just going to go ahead and move on. And get on up out of here. When you do put a blue marker on your map, if you ride over the spot where the marker was, the marker will go away. That way you don't have to manually remove them from the map yourself. So, this is perfect. This is nighttime. That is a nighttime boss. That is called the Night Cavalry. There is 1 to 2 of them in pretty much every section of the map. This is the Limgrave section of the map, and there are 2 here. There are at least 2 in the next section that we're going to go to. And he just saw us. That's not good. Because we are not strong enough to be taking him on. So, I am going to sit back here at my trusty Site of Grace. I'm going to move time forward to the morning. I am now going to go pick up an additional Site of Grace that will make it easier for a future segment. And then we're going to go back and clear that bridge. Bunch of dogs here over on the left if you should choose to take them out. Alright, here we go. Now, in the article that will be accompanying all of these videos, I will absolutely be providing a set of images that show the different map areas as well as each one of the Sites of Grace and their names. That way you won't get confused by anything or get lost as you're going through things yourself. Okay. I didn't mean to do that, actually. What we are going to do now, so this is the Wheeping Peninsula. There's where the merchant is. This is where we are right now. We're going to go back to the Bridge of Sacrifice. We're going to clear that out using our sword. And then we're going to go back to Stormhill Shack to find the golden seed that Roderica left us. Alright, so just like we've done previously, we are going to sneak through. And if we play this smart, we should be able to clear this area without any problems whatsoever. So one of the big reasons for clearing this area is that stone sword key right there. Now, I'm just going to run. And hide. The guys with the big shields and the spears don't normally run very far away. Plus, he got stuck. So he will de-aggro here in a little bit. And then we'll go back. So the golden seed that I just picked up... Oops. So I have one golden seed right now. I should be able to use that to upgrade my number of flasks immediately. After that, though, I will need to have 2 in order to upgrade again. Because of the fact that we're going to be an archer with this build, we are going to be using a lot of the archer skills. That is going to take magic. So you're probably going to want to have, I would recommend 1 until you feel comfortable. But then at some point, you're going to want to probably have 2. Or even 3. And that's going to very much depend upon each boss or each enemy. Once you start to find out that there are enemies or bosses that have specific weaknesses to, say, poison or rot, bleed, what have you, and you're going to be using those arrow types, then you might not need to use your skills as much, and therefore can put the majority of your flasks in the health layer. So you're going to want to make those adjustments from time to time at the resting points prior to each boss fight or major area. Something to keep in mind. Okay, we're going to go back up to Stormhill Shack. And, oh!
A pleasure to see you. Did you give the that I love them?
She should have been gone by now. Oh, I think I know why. Nope. Okay. Flasks. Add charge. Okay, and then I'm actually going to allocate and go with 4-2 instead of 5-1. Okay, now, the next segment is going to be focused on nothing but collection completely. Very little killing at all. However, before we start that segment, we need to take what I'm going to call a shortcut around the castle. The first major boss that is part of the storyline is in this castle here called Stormvale Castle. You're told that by one of the first initial characters, so I'm not spoiling a ton here. I'm not going to say anything more than that. There are multiple ways of getting to that boss. However, because this is an open world game, you are free to avoid this until you really truly feel ready. You can do so by going around the back of the castle if you know how. That's what we're going to do, and that's going to allow us to get some higher level upgrade materials so that our bows are in the best possible position before taking on that boss. So we're going to start here at Stormvale Shack, and we're going to head this way towards the Finger Reader Crone. That is a special NPC. There are multiples of them, and they provide you with information, very vague, cryptic information, about where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do, who you're supposed to meet. Alright, so we're going to go this way. Avoid the soldiers at the moment. Although we could take them out if you wanted to get the runes for them. It's up to you. There's the Finger Reader Crone. I'll let you decide if you want to talk to her. And right here is a cookbook. The Nomadic Warrior Cookbook 7. Let's take a look and see what it actually has in it. Soft cotton, stanching boluses, and rainbow stone arrows. The rainbow stone arrows are worthless, trust me. The soft cotton, though, does let you fall from higher distances, so they are worth knowing how to craft. And then the staunching boluses help relieve some kind of an effect. I'm actually not even sure which one it is at the moment. Okay, so then we go down this way, and we just follow along this wall to the right. And this takes us back behind the castle. Now, for the most part, you can just sit here and go along, collecting, craftable materials along the way. You are going to run up on some wolves, so I'm going to pull out my short bow, and I'm going to shoot one. 65 points of damage. Okay, so 3 arrows was what it took, and a little over 100 runes. That's a good return, so let's go ahead and kill the next one. Okay. Not bad. I don't want to do that too much. There is actually another set of wolves coming up, so I'm just going to skip past those. But I just wanted you to see the type of math that you're going to potentially have to do with some of the lower end enemies. Now, the larger enemies, you should never have to worry about that kind of math. Do whatever you feel is right. Once you get your longbow to a high enough level, you're going to be able to start to determine the one-shot ability of enemies like that. And there's numerous different kinds of those enemies that are always in groups. Wolves, dogs we've seen already. There are others that I'll let you find on your own. And as you start to go through the world, as an archer, you're going to want to be a little bit more stealthy about things. So the ability to do a one-shot for those is going to become very, very powerful as an archer. So that's the reason for the longbow versus the short bow. One thing to keep in mind, though, you do not have access to your skills when on horseback. So you will need to get off your horse if you want to use the mighty shot or you want to use the barrage of the short bow. Alright, so we are at the stopping point for this particular segment. The next segment, we're going to be going into that area that we are seeing right there. That is Lirunia Lakes. And that is where we're going to be collecting a butt-ton, a crap ton of upgrade materials. And by the time we're done, we will be able to get the new Somber weapon, and it upgraded to +4. We're going to be able to get the short bow to +6, and the longbow to at least +3, maybe even more, especially in the segment after that, where we clear out specific caverns that are designed specifically for upgrade materials. So, see you in the next segment. Okay, here we are back at Lirunia Lakes. And let's go ahead and get started, because this is going to be a long collection session. First thing that we're going to do, though, is head down this hill to this church. And don't forget to step over the glowing skulls. You can break those with your horse just as easily as you can yourself. Oh, and we got lucky. So that item right there you can find in almost every church on the map. No matter where the church is, there is almost always a sacred tier. Now, what is a sacred tier? It actually allows you to expand the flasks that you're carrying. So the flasks, you have a certain number of them based on golden seeds, and based on the number of sacred tiers that you find, they can either be, right now, a simple flask, or flask +1, +2, plus so on. I have been told that there are enough golden seeds for 14 total flasks, and that there are enough sacred tiers to get your flasks to +12. There's an NPC there with a quest. I'll let you find out more. Let's go ahead and get back into onto our mount here. And let's continue down the hill. Now, you might be going, well, Brian, you've been collecting a whole bunch of golden runes via the skulls and so on, and that's true, I have been, but I haven't really been using them. What I personally tend to do is hold on to them until there's a very specific reason for using them. I need to purchase something in particular, or I need them to get me to a point of leveling up. So, like if I'm, 800 runes short, I'll pop 4 of the golden rune ones to get me to that point. That kind of a thing. And actually, here is a perfect example of that. So we're running up on another grace point. We're going to touch that. And then we found ourselves another merchant. Now, this merchant, I actually use him a lot.
You around here, surprised no matter. No.
He seems to be one of my favorites for getting arrows. But, in addition, he has one of the most important items in the game, the lantern. The lantern keeps you from having to carry a torch, which means that you won't have to have something in your left hand if you are going into a cave or a catacomb. Now, in the major dungeons, this doesn't come into play all that often, as they are fairly well lit. But when you start to find caves and catacombs, and we're going to go into a couple of them here soon, they might not have light sources. So the lantern really comes in handy, allowing you to see what's in front of you. I'm not going to buy it right now as part of this, but I'm making you aware of it. It is kind of expensive, 1,800 runes. There is only one other merchant that actually carries this particular item, and we're not going to be finding that merchant in this particular set of videos. This particular merchant also has the Warrior's Cookbook 11, which allows you to craft crystal darts. Spellproof Dried Liver, and the Shatter Shard Arrow. I have not used any of those items. I have found crystal darts and used them once, but I have never crafted any in my runs. So, I'll leave it up to you as to whether or not you want to buy that particular cookbook. I currently have... I don't even know. I wish I knew how many I had. Actually, let's do this. I have 29. Okay. Alright. We're going to do that. Okay. Now, let's bring up the map here real quickly because we are already in blank area. First thing that we're going to do is get to the map piece. After that, we're going to be taking Lirunia Lakes and doing a big S through it in order to pick up everything that we need. Once we get to the map piece, I'll show it to you from there. Now, there are going to be some enemies along the way. The first set of enemies are not a big deal. We can take them on with the sword. The next set of enemies we're going to want to try and deal with a short bow. Okay. Now, there are going to be enemies right at the map marker, at the map pillar. So I'm going to bring out my arrows and shoot them from distance. Thankfully, they are very slow. And we're getting 72 each. You can aim if you want to try and hit their head. Alright, so now I'm going to do the last one with the sword. To save on money. Alright, so there is our map piece. Okay. Now, let's take a quick look. So, the next thing that we're going to be doing, you'll notice there's not a lot filled in. We are actually going to be doing an S starting from around this area. We're going to be heading up this particular area to pick up another Site of Grace. Then we're going to be heading to the right to this broken down bridge. There's another Site of Grace there. And then we're going to be heading straight across. That's going to allow us to pick up another map piece, another golden seed, some golden runes, as well as we're going to start to find these little gazebos that are out in the world or in the lake, and those all contain upgrade items, specifically smithing stones. So, let's go ahead and start heading toward the next map point. Or Grace Point, I mean. Which should be right up here, I believe. Oh, a little bit further ahead. Yep, there it is. So I'm going to get off the horse. Glintstone Craftsman's Cookbook. Let's take a quick look. All it provides is freezing grease. That allows you to take your sword and turn it into a cold sword, if that was something that you wanted to do. Alright, now, before we head to that broken down bridge, you'll see a gazebo right there. I'm going to call it a gazebo for lack of a better term. I'm going to go around these ruins because I don't want to attract the enemies that are in them. And I'm going to come around the back side of that gazebo. Because there is two things to be aware of. There's a teleporter right there, I'm not going to tell you anything about that teleporter. I'll let you find that out for yourself. Smithing stone level 3. All smithing stones, and somber smithing stones for that matter, are leveled. In the regular weapon or armor, weapon or shield based world, actually, let me stop here. The upgrade is for smithing stone level 1s, your weapons will be upgraded +1, +2, +3. For smithing stone level 2s, +4, +5, +6. You get the idea. All the way up to +24. Then there is a ancient dragon smithing stone that gets you to the +25, which is the max for regular weapons. For somber smithing stones, you only need 1 stone of each level to go +1 to 10. In the case of the regular smithing stones, it's 2, 4, 6. Which is why we have to do so much collecting. Also why you should not try and leverage 3 regular weapons. You should really try and focus on 2 regular weapons at most, and your third weapon being a somber weapon or a special weapon. Okay, so that's up here. Okay. First thing that we're going to do is go over here to this gazebo. Actually, no, we're not, because that one's full with poison. Yeah, that one we can't get into. Okay. Now, we actually don't have to try and climb that wall to get to where I want to get to. Alright, what just popped up behind me was a lobster. This early part of the game, stay as far away from them as you can. They are very, very dangerous. They're slow, but they have the ability to do that. Alright, so we're going to go up this bridge and pick up the grace point that's up here. Your horse has the ability to do a double jump, just so that you know. And there we go. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and actually sit down here so I can get my flasks refilled. Oh, and this also moves the story along.
Forgive me.
All right, I'm going to skip past this so that you can watch it yourself.
Whereas I merely... There is but one I can take gathering place. Very well.
So she's going to take us to our central location, just like the Firelink Shrine or Majula, things like that from the other FromSoft games. This is going to be called the Round Table Hold. This is important to know because the smithing station that we saw in the Church of Ella in the first video only allows you to upgrade your weapons to +3. For anything beyond +3, you need to go... And there's actually Roderica right there. You actually need to come here and talk to this blacksmith. He will allow you to... Or he will upgrade your weapons beyond +3. He's also the only one that can upgrade somber smithing weapons. So, something else to keep in mind. I actually already have some smithing stones. So, I can strengthen my armament. And I'm going to do that with the short bow. So remember, we've picked up a number of them. I can go to +1. I can even go to +2. But I cannot go to +3 until I get at least one more regular smithing stone level 1. Now, you'll notice here in the attack power area that my attack power went from 65 to 72 with those 2 levels. And because of my current scaling, I get an extra 5 points of damage because of that. Once I go to 3, you'll notice in the blue that it jumps to 76 and 6. So you can see what the damage is going to be based off of all of this. You'll also see the barrage FP cost just above all of that. So you can validate how many points of focus you really need to have in order to be able to use your skills. Now, from here, I have no Sight of Grace, so we're just going to open up the map. I'm going to hit down on my right stick to zoom out. And then we're going to go back to, first of all, the Stormhill Shack to pick up the Golden Seed now that Roderica is in the Round Table Hold. There it is. Perfect. That should now give me the ability to add another flask. Oh, apparently not. Apparently I only have one. I didn't realize. I thought I had two. But we're going to go back to where we just were, which is the Gate Town Bridge Sight of Grace. Now, the great thing from here is that we're going to go straight across. But there are some additional, and you can actually see them right here. There's one of the gazebo-type areas that I talked about. We're going to want to absolutely clear that out along the way. So let's get back on our horse. There's an item down there, and I actually don't know what it is. You know what? For exploration purposes, let's find out. Silver pickled fowlfoot. Not me worth taking the time, but that's okay. Now, there are going to be a number of things along this bridge area. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from here. Then I'm going to jump across. Now, for these gazebos, they are almost always surrounded by enemies. So what I tend to do is line myself up with the stairs so that I can jump out immediately. And then I'm going to continue along with the bridge, which basically runs along with the town, because that's going to take me to the next map and the next Sight of Grace. Let's go ahead and get out. There's the map. And our Sight of Grace. Now we're going to have a better idea of what we're looking at. So, we started here. We picked up what was in this gazebo here. What we need to now do is continue along the path towards the Finger Reader Crone. There's going to be another golden seed along the path, and we're going to actually turn in order to pick up some level 2 smithing stones. We're then going to come back out and go to this gazebo, and this gazebo before heading into here to pick up our special weapon. So, and when we pick up our special weapon, we're also going to be coming into here where there is a large number of runes for us to pick up. So let's go ahead and get that rolling. Once we pick up this next golden seed, we will be able to upgrade our flasks. Actually, I'm going to go ahead on inward because the golden seed is actually inside. Yeah, it's actually straight ahead. You can actually see it. Yeah, picking up things on the horse can be a little difficult. Alright, so we're going to go run along these buildings, and then we're going to go right through this gap. And right behind that crab is a smithing stone level 2. And as you can see, they do some significant damage. Gotta be careful. Now, that being said, they did damage to my horse, not to me. So, what I can do, if I had bought the craft book, which I didn't, I would be able to go to item crafting and create the item that I would use for healing my horse. But we're going to go to the first gazebo that's on my list. Make sure to watch what's in front of you so that you don't get accidentally slammed by lobsters or anything else. Now, this one is surrounded by lobsters. So, again, I'm going to line myself up with the stairs as best I can. And then head on to the next one. Trying to block their view of me with rocks and things like that so they can't spit at me. Okay, so here's the next one. And the next one is actually a grace point. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to sit down and move time forward because I can see that it's starting to get dark. And I definitely don't want to get surrounded. Plus, this is also a good chance for me to upgrade my flasks. So we just upgraded to another there, and we're going to use the Sacred Tier as well. So increase the amount replenished by flasks. There we go. So you'll now notice down below, when I get done, until morning, that the flasks will say +1. There we go. Flask of Crimson Tears +1. And I now have 5 and 2 with respect to the number of flasks. So the next thing is we're going up here, and then we're going to go pick up our special weapon and pick up a bunch of runes. I always find it funny that when I'm in a dark area like this, that's when I don't find any glowing skulls. This is considered morning time, but obviously it's just overcast. Okay. I just wanted to see where we were. Alright, those guys, I call them octopuses, you can call them whatever. Squids. They are very dangerous. They are very, very slow, but they have this ability to jump. And trust me, you do not want them landing on your head. Okay. Now, because this is an archer build, we can immediately go to pick up our weapon. If this were a different kind of build, I would be traveling along that shoreline, getting additional sites of grace and additional items. But for right now, we're going to head this way, towards this collection of broken down buildings. And inside of one of these is a chest. It's actually right here. There are enemies all throughout this area, so you are going to need to be careful. But this is our new weapon, the Ice Rind Hatchet. And you might be going, well, why? Because of its skill. It comes with the Hoarfrost Stomp, which in early to even mid-game can be extremely powerful against many, many types of enemies. Not all enemies, but many types of enemies. So it is something that comes in very, very handy. You are going to want to upgrade it, though, very quickly in order for it to be as powerful as it can early on. It's one of the reasons why we are picking up things that we are. Actually, I'm going to make a quick switch because it doesn't do a tremendous amount of damage in comparison to the sword. Didn't have much of a choice there. Yeah, anything that you see as a flower is probably going to poison you or rot you, one of the two. There actually is going to be... So we're going to go here and pick up a whole crap ton of runes, hopefully. Then there is, right on this island here, there is going to be a... one of those white scarabs. That will give us a Somber Smithing Stone 2 that will allow us to upgrade our new Ice Rind Hatchet to +2. They are only worth 31 runes. They are not worth the cost of the arrows. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. But they're easy to kill. Oh, crap. Yep, that wasn't good. Let me get out of his line of sight. Okay, so we're going to basically be heading this direction. Yeah, my marker was a little bit off. First thing we're going to do is go into this gazebo. And then we're going to go up here against this building, and this is where all of the runes were that I was talking about. Anytime you find a collection of coffins like this, you're going to find runes. And they're just out there for the taking. They are almost always surrounded by enemies of some kind. So, you know, do it at your own risk. Be careful. But it is always going to be worth it. And it'll be up to you as to whether or not you want to get everything or not. This one is very full. Okay, there are still 2 more. Alright, I got everything. Let me get out of the poison. We're good to go. The more that you use your horse, the better you will get at doing those kinds of things. But it's 100% worth it. Every time that you see tombstones like that or coffins like that, there are going to be a ton of runes available to you of different sizes. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to head to that island. And you'll notice I'm pulling out my bow, because I already know that the scarab that we're going to be trying to kill is notorious for disappearing. Let's go ahead and grab this particular Site of Grace first. This is just north of where we picked up the hatchet. Now, for this, you're not going to want to get too close, because otherwise it will absolutely disappear. So, I recommend getting just enough. There we go. And I used my barrage skill in order to kill him, and I got a Somber Smithing Stone too. Alright, let's look at the map. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be heading up this way. in order to get a Somber Smithing Stone 4 and a Somber Smithing Stone 3 that are just sitting out in the world. We'll be getting another map piece as well, so just follow along and we'll get everything. We're also going to get a grace point for this cave. This cave contains level 2 smithing stones. So obviously that's going to be important if we want to upgrade our weapons beyond +3. Okay, so in order to go the direction that we want, we need to open up the map for this area, or so that we can see where we want to go. So we're going to go right along this area, pick up the road. I'm going to stay away from the bats. Bats, much like wolves, are going to be found throughout the world. They are probably not going to be worth your time, though, from an arrow perspective. At least not until we have the bow at a stronger level. Okay, grace point number 1 is right here. I'm just going to be grabbing these and going. Now, there's a item or two up here being guarded by these jellyfish. It's up to you as to whether or not you want to grab them. I won't, obviously. But you could. And there's another soldier encampment. You could go around it, or you could go through it. I probably should have gone around it, but that's okay. We're still in good shape. We are just heading to the next map piece, which should now be on the map. The icon. Yep, there it is. And that'll let me show you where we're going next. So this is the back, the top half of the S that I was talking about. We're going to be basically drawing. Another site of grace, and then the map is right up there. And that's the map of Lirunia West. Alright, now, we can go straight down to the water. The first place that we're going to be going is right here. That is going to be a Somber Smithing Stone level 4, I believe. And then right about here is going to be Somber Smithing Stone level 3. And then we'll be opening up the grace point for the Raya Lucaria Caverns, or caves. The last thing that we're going to be doing is going up here, where there is a Smithing Stone level 4. That'll be one of the first ones that you'll get. That gets you to level plus 15. No, plus 12. Sorry, plus 12. Alright. Piece of advice, stay away from the balloons. Shooting the balloons is one thing. They actually drop a golden rune level 6, which is worth about 1,200 runes. But they also drop enemies. And certainly this early on, the enemies are going to be way too powerful. can actually see it right there through the trees. Just a dead guy sitting in a chair. Just like the Somber Smithing Stone 1 that we found in Limgrave. It happens from time to time. Okay, the next place that we're going to be going is around this wall here that we're seeing in front of us. Yeah, we're going to be traveling around here. But it's going to be down here on the ground, so we're just going to stay here in the water. And this one's not going to be quite as easy to see because it's going to be inside of a small tent encampment. Okay. Actually, I was wrong. Okay, this is another dead guy sitting out in a chair. Okay, the next thing then is to discover the Raya Lucaria Cave, which... Alright, that is a mausoleum. I'll let you find out what it's for. I'm not going to tell you. Now, you notice that blue mark? That lets you know that when you go into a cave or a catacomb, that it's going to force you to get off the course. So, we're going to get this grace point. Which is up here. And we'll come back here after we've done some upgrading. Now, a question you might have is, well, you have not done much in the way of even leveling yourself up. I only leveled myself up so that I could carry the hatchet. And that's true. I did. Because, and I mentioned this at the very beginning of the first video, from a stats perspective, upgrading your dexterity to improve damage output for the hatchet, for the bows, what have you, is not nearly as valuable as increasing your bow from +1 to +2. You're going to get more damage output from that upgrade than you will from your dexterity. Now, as you get higher levels of weapon, the scaling of that weapon should also improve. Unfortunately, that's not true with the bows, but any other weapon it does. The bows only increase from E to D. Almost all others will increase over time, sometimes as many as 2 or 3 letters. And then, depending upon the Ashes of War that you apply, you can also get other affinities to increase even more. At least with other weapons. Bows are the only ones that's not true. However, once you do have higher affinities, the increase of dexterity or strength or whatever attribute the affinity is associated with will increase a little bit more, but not a ton. Alright, what is the easiest way for me to get up there? It's this way. Yeah, so we have one more place to go in Lirunia Lakes before going back to Limgrave. And it also gets us another grace point. Just got to stay ahead of the wolves. You will notice here a graveyard. I would highly recommend you staying away from it until you feel ready to take it on. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so this is known as an artist shack. There are special things to do with paintings in this game. I am not going to tell you any more about that either. So just like in the previous areas, we have another guy, dead guy, sitting out here in a chair. Smithing stone level 4. So that's it for Lirunia Lakes. Now, there are other items, and I'm going to point them out here. There are items in this set of woods that you can pick up, specifically level 3 smithing stones, but you don't need to pick them up now. You don't need to be above +6 to get past the first bosses. But if you really want to, get yourself fully leveled up before you go into those bosses, just keep in mind that there are items in this area as well. Multiple level 3 smithing stones. Okay, let me clear the map. And we are now going to go back to Round Table Hold. Upgrade what we can. Well, we're going to upgrade the hatchet. And then in the next video, we are going to... Okay, I didn't try and purchase anything from them. In the next video, we're going to go to some specific caves so that we can gather additional upgrade materials, as well as take a look at some of our first bosses, cave bosses, and how they're going to work with the bow. Before I do anything, let me pop a few of my golden runes. Yeah, so golden rune level 5. That was one that I found in that set of coffins alongside the academy. And that gave me 1,600 runes. More than enough to do my upgrades.
Well, I took you no matter it. Lay out your own.
So now we can upgrade our hatchet. There's +1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, this is 100% the best weapon that we have. If you look at the attack power again, 175 for the base, 38 because of dexterity scaling. And going to +5 is going to be 191 and 45. That's how much of an increase on a somber weapon you're getting. Versus the sword, which is currently at 115 and 23. Now, over time, as your dexterity increases, those scaling numbers will look better as well. Alright, so let's now go... We are going to be doing the following. Limgrave Tunnels, Morn Tunnel, and the Raya Lucaria Caverns. Those will get us Smithing Stone 1s, Smithing Stone 2s, so that we can upgrade both of the bows as high as possible. So the best place to start is going to be back at the Church of Ella. So let's go there. Let's go ahead and get the crafting cookbook, or the crafting kit, so that we can actually purchase cookbooks moving forward, or actually use them.
Great. Well, you're back.
Alright, so there's our crafting kit. And then he carries 3 cracked pots. And then he also carries the 2 cookbooks that we talked about very early on. So with that...
Goodbye.
Let's now make a quick equipment change to switch out the sword for the Ice Rind Hatchet. And that'll do it for this particular segment. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, in this segment, we're going to be focusing on the the discovery of upgrade materials for our bows. We've already found the upgrade materials to get our hatchet to +4, but now we need to get, at the minimum, our short bow to +3 or higher, and at a minimum our longbow just to +3. In order to do that, we need to get a lot more level 1 smithing stones and quite a few more smithing stone level 2s. Now, I'm not going to go through all 3 locations from top to bottom. That'll be too much of a spoiler. I want you to find the things for yourself. But I will be taking you to the locations, starting you off within the areas, and then I'll let you find all of the stones yourself and take care of the boss yourself. I will at least show you the beginning of the first area and the boss of the first area so that you can see what a boss strategy would look like using the bow. Because I will be using the hatchet within the areas, but then use the bow for the actual boss. So let's make our first transition. And actually, let's take a quick look at the map. There are going to be 3 primary locations that we're going to go. One of them we've already found. That was the Raya Lucaria tunnel that we were in near the very end of the last video. The next is Limgrave Tunnel, which is right there. And the Moor Tunnel, which is right there. We're going to go to the Moor Tunnel first, simply because we've already got a grace point right nearby. So let's go ahead and travel to that. And let's get on our mount, and we're going to head over to a bridge that's being guarded by a warrior. I'm just going to jump right over top of him so that I don't have to worry about him. And I'm going to head straight down to that map point, which I can do by making a left right here. And I could either jump down to that spirit well, which would get me down there, or I can actually drop straight down right here as well. Because it is not a long drop and it will not hurt Torrent, our wonderful horse. And then we can head right here to this cavern or cave. And here we go. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to be primarily using the hatchet to make my way through these tunnels. And I recommend that for you as well. The reasoning behind that, and actually let's go ahead and sit at our grace point here. The reasoning behind that is these tunnels where you will find smithing stones. They are being mined by very heavily armored non-humans. They aren't wearing armor, but their bodies are encased with crystal or some kind of extremely hard rock. Because of that, slashing doesn't work very well. Hence, my hatchet by its own does not work very well. But they are very susceptible to the Hoarfrost Stomp. Now, they do take good piercing damage with your arrows. But we're limited on arrows, and we don't have a lot of spending money right now. So let's try and make this as easy as possible. But let's still make sure to learn how to deal with bosses with the bow. Now, in every one of these tunnels, there's a fairly direct route and an indirect route. And I'm pretty sure that this particular tunnel has... Yep, right here. And this is what a smithing stone looks like. If I can get it to... There we go. So that was a smithing stone level 1. Now the good news is anytime you find these, there's almost always a secondary location to drop down, or secondary way to drop down. And there we go. So that's what we were going to be looking for. And the color gold is going to be your indicator that it is a smithing stone. If it is white, that is a somber smithing stone. Now, we don't need any of those at the moment, but over time you will. Alright, so here we go. Now, this particular tunnel actually has regular non-humans, fleshy non-humans, as protectors of those that are doing the mining. So you can get away, actually, with using your bow. So, for example, There we go. So in this particular tunnel, we're going to be jumping back and forth between hatchet and bow. But I also don't have an unlimited amount of bow or arrows, so I'm going to need to be careful. That's what I meant by the Hoarfrost Stomp. And there's another smithing stone level 1. Alright, from here, I'm going to go ahead and finish taking care of the rest of this area. I'll see you at the boss door. Okay, here we are at the boss door, and I have collected all of the smithing stones and somber smithing stones in the area, except for, don't forget to look around when you get to a boss door. There's a last somber smithing stone level 1. Now, I have readjusted my flask, so I've been running 4 health and 3 focus. And I have been using my bow, and I've also been using the Hoarfrost Stomp before I got here. So I'm not sure how well I'm going to do against this boss, but I'm going to try and do bow primarily, and we'll see how it goes from there. That barrage works nicely. Thankfully, this boss is kind of slow, so... but he does have a reach. This is the Scaly Misbegotten. So I used a nice combination there of barrage as well as regular arrows, and he gives me the Rusty Anchor and 2,000 runes. Now, I used 24 arrows at 20 a pop, so that was, what, 800? So I did make out, but I probably could have done a better job against that particular boss. So let's go ahead and head back real quickly to the entrance. We'll go back to the Church of Ella, restock up on our arrows, and then we'll go to the next location, which is Limgrave Tunnels. Now, from the Church of Ella, we'll be able to get to the Limgrave Tunnels fairly easily. But, as you can see, it is nighttime, so we are going to want to go during the day.
Always a pleasure.
So let's first of all restock up on our arrows. We've currently got 36. Remember, you're only allowed to carry 99. Excuse me, you're only allowed to carry 99. So after everything was said and done, I still have 1,800 runes left. Plus, if you did find everything in the tunnel, then you did find a golden rune level 2. So that's an extra 400. So overall, not too terribly bad. But this is going to be what you're going to have to worry about as you go through with an archer build. You're going to have to really make some mathematical decisions on whether or not you want to use the bow, knowing that you have to spend money on arrows, or whether you're going to want to just go ahead and use a secondary weapon. The other thing to keep in mind, and I was thinking about this between the last segment and this, for special arrows, and we're going to be finding merchants that sell fire and poison arrows in the last video, they are much, much more costly. So we're spending 20 runes an arrow for standards. For fire and poison, they are 120 an arrow. Now, obviously, you're going to only use them in special circumstances, but you really need to make sure that you know when to use them and when not to, and that you're going to be getting enough runes back from those bosses or enemies when you do. Something to very much keep in mind. Alright, let's get back on our horse and head over to Limgrave Tunnel. I do recommend that if you are going to be crafting any arrows, and there are certain types where you're going to have to, then I do recommend whenever you see a sheep that you go ahead and farm it. They do produce thin beast bones, and those are the primary ingredient for all of the bone arrows. The best way to get there, I think, is to go... Yeah, it's to go around this way. So go past the original ruins that we've already cleared. Now, you are going to want to be very careful that you stay close to the wall, because right there at that fire, I'll just say a boss will show up. And you do not want to aggro that boss too soon. Make sure that you're ready for that boss. The good thing is it is a boss that is designed for archers. Okay, so this is the Limgrave Tunnel. And just like in the previous one, there is going to be a secondary location back here. And you can see how dark it is. This is where the lanterns really come into play. If you're wondering or have ever played previous Souls games, you might know that fall damage can be very detrimental to your health. And that is still true in Elden Ring, but it is not nearly as so as it was in any of the Souls games, Bloodborne. Sekiro didn't even have fall damage. Sekiro was one that if you just fell, you took a little bit of damage but didn't die. In this particular game, there is fall damage, but it doesn't take effect for a much larger distance than it was in previous games. So, let's go ahead and start on in. Now, this particular tunnel does not have any of those protectors like the last one did. Everybody is made up of these crystal miners, or hardened miners, if you will. So for anybody that is mining a smithing stone, we'll use Hoarfrost Stomp to make it easier on ourselves. And there's two. And from this point on, I will let you finish clearing out the rest of the tunnel, and I'll meet you at the boss door. Okay, here we are at the boss fight for Limgrave Tunnels, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not expecting this one to go well. I've never fought this guy with a bow, and I have always struggled with this guy even when I have fought him. So I'm going to try the bow first, and we're going to see how it goes. But if I do have to make the switch to Hoarfrost Stomp, I will. You can see I'm only doing a little bit of damage to him. It's a very tight area. Yeah, he has a big AoE. We got it. There we go. Not bad. Not bad. A lot of arrows, though. That cost me 43 arrows for only 1,800 runes. So it wasn't really worth it. I probably could have done a little bit of a better job had my longbow been upgraded. The good thing is, though, we have now, or we should have, collected enough runes or enough smithing stone level 1s to absolutely get our bow to +3. So let's go ahead back to the Church of Elo real quick, and let's take a look at what we have as far as smithing stones are concerned, and then we'll head to the last location. Yeah, the key with the trolls is just run between their legs. Get away from them. But when that one particular troll, because he had that quadruple slam, you had to make sure to stay far enough away from the AoE, which meant you had to keep running. Alright, we should be able... First of all, let's take a quick look at our inventory. So I started with 5 level 1s. Clearing both of those tunnels, I now have 22. So you should be somewhere close to that. And the reason I say close is because I actually got 2 or 3 because of drops from enemies. So you might not have the exact number, but if you started at 5, you should have collected somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or so to get you to 20 plus. More than enough to upgrade the short bow to +3. We already have a bunch of level 2s, so we'll upgrade it as far as we can. And we should be able to start upgrading our longbow as well. So, let's go ahead to here. Actually, no, let's go back to the round table hold. Okay, let's go talk to... our friend here.
Well, I took you no matter, it's all as out, you're up.
Okay, so short bow. We are now at +3, +4, +5, and +6. And because we collected level 3s in Lirunia Lakes, I can actually get it to +7. Now, as far as the longbow is concerned, +1, 2, and 3, and we even have enough level 2s to get it to +4. Now the key is going to be, and we still have over 2,300 runes, not including what we've been collecting from golden runes. So here's the great news. We still have another tunnel to go through, the Raya Lucaria tunnel. Now in the Raya Lucaria tunnel, we're only going to clear it, or try to clear it. We're not even going to bother with the boss fight. It's too soon. We're not a high enough level yet. We're not doing enough damage. So we go get as many level 2s as we can, get our longbow to +6, and then we are in a great position, once we level up a few times, to go after the first boss. So let's go ahead to Raya Lucaria. which, if you'll remember, is up here in Lirunia Lakes. Now, just like the Limgrave Tunnel, everybody in this tunnel is a crystal-based non-human. So the Hoarfrost Stomp is going to be our best option for taking care of them. So, for example, this guy right here. Now, you'll notice it takes more than one. You see what the hatchet does on these guys. Not much. Somber Smithing Stone level 2, if we needed it. So, we're absolutely going to need to be much more careful in this particular area. But all we need to do is get some level 2s. We don't even need to actually clear the entire area if we don't want to. There's one right over there. But I'll tell you right now, it's a pain. It is a serious pain to get. And I'll be honest, this particular area is a bit of a pain anyway. Well, after my wonderful death, I will let you go ahead and finish clearing out as much as you can. Once I have cleared out as much as I can, we'll pick back up and we will upgrade our longbow to +6. I just wanted to show that to you really quickly. These guys are so strong because of their crystal form that the Hoarfrost Stomp is the only way to take them down. They do take some damage, obviously, from the arrows, but it was 19 points of damage. It would take a lot of arrows per person to actually take them all down. That's the reason why we use the Hoarfrost Stomp early on in the game. Now, are there other options? Yes, there absolutely is. If you would like to swap out your hatchet for a blunt-based weapon, a mace, Morning Star, flail, hammer, things along those lines, you absolutely can. But you're going to have to completely change how you plan for your upgrade materials, because all of those items that I just listed, they either have different attribute requirements, or they require smithing stones, just like your bows do. So you would end up not having your bows at a high enough level for later on in the game. Something to keep in mind. Okay, here we are outside Raya Lucaria Tunnel. And where are we with upgrade materials? Do we have enough for the longbow? Let's take a quick look. Our longbow was currently at +4, which means we need at least 4 level 2s to get it to +5. I only have 3. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is the Raya Lucaria Tunnel is one of only 2 tunnels that provide smithing stones in Lirunia Lakes, just like there are 2 tunnels inside of Limgrave. However, this one provides both level 2s and 3s. And I actually collected more level 3s than I did level 2s. There are some other level 2s throughout the area. I would need to find one more in order to get my longbow to +5. But the primary is to get the short bow to at least +6. We got it to +7. We can actually get it to +8. We don't have enough to get it to +9, but we do have enough to get it to +8. So why don't we go do that real quick, and then we'll wrap up this video. The next segment, we're going to do the last bit of collecting of merchants and one additional resource that's really going to help us before we head into our final fights. So back to Round Table Hold. Let's go have a conversation with our friend back here.
Well, I took you for no matter, it's all as out your own.
And let's go ahead and upgrade our short bow to +8. That is excellent. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the Church of Ella just as a standard stopping point. And we'll wrap up this video and talk about what we're going to do in the next one. So in the next one, as I mentioned, we're going to make a trip through Caelid. Now, we haven't ever stepped through Caelid. Caelid is an extremely dangerous place, especially at this low level that we're at right now. We are going to level up a little bit here real quickly before we make that trip. But we're primarily going there to get access to 2 merchants. One that gives us fire arrows, or sells us fire arrows. One that sells us poison arrows. We are going to be collecting some points of grace, a map piece, as well as a golden seed. And then there is a very important talisman that we're going to be getting a hold of as well. So we're going to be making some changes here to our inventory. Let's go ahead and go straight up short bow and long bow. And then we will carry the hatchet just as a precaution. We do need to restock up on our arrows, so let's go ahead and do that real quick, and then we're going to level up.
Always.
Okay.
Goodbye.
2,900. Let's see what we can do for levels. We should be able to get 2, maybe 3 more levels. So let's put a minimum of 2 points into Vigor to give us more hit points, as well as to increase our defense power, not by much, but a little bit. And then let's go ahead and put in an extra point into Mind, as we have been using a lot of focus. And with both Barrage and Mighty Shot, we're going to be using focus there as well. Now, we actually have a ton of golden runes that we've been collecting as well. And we are going to collect some more here. But I just wanted to go ahead and get us a few levels before we go into the next video. So I'll see you in the next segment. Okay, we are in what could potentially be the last segment. In this segment, we're going to be focusing on collecting some last-minute materials, some last-minute resources that are available out in the world. And we're going to be doing the majority of that in Caelid. We're also going to be finding some merchants that we need to have access to as well. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is starting from the Egheal Lake South region. We're going to open up this part of the map here, which is going to give us the borders of an area called Caelid that we haven't even really talked about yet. It is an extremely dangerous area. I do not recommend going there until you're at least level 50 or 60, and really should be higher, because they have ramped up the difficulty for that particular area big time in comparison to both Limgrave and Lirunia Lakes. So let's go ahead and transport on over, and I'll show you where we're going. On our way there, we are going to be stopping at another quick location that I want to show you. Now, this guy has passed by. Let's go ahead and jump up here. Oh. Another skull. Make sure to crack your skulls. As I said, thin beast bones. Important for the crafting of arrows. Okay, so I made a left out of the site of grace. And we are going to go down this hill where we are going to find another set of coffins. If you ever see this particular material, make sure you pick it up. It is Trina's Lily. Trina's Lily are very important and will be used in a very particular arrow type that you are going to want to craft for a very specific set of bosses. Those arrows are going to be called Sleeping Bone arrows. There is a regular version called St. Trina's arrows as well. But if you ever want to craft Sleeping Bone arrows, you will need Trina's Lily to do so. So anytime you see them, make sure to pick them up. The reason why is because they are very rare, and they do not replenish if you go and sit at a site of grace. Once they're gone, they're gone. Just killing some wolves. Remember I told you that anytime you find coffins, there is going to be some kind of enemy surrounding them. In this case, it is wolves. So I'm just clearing the area before I get all of these wonderful golden runes. I don't really know how she got a fight. Oh man. Alright, nope, I'm not. Okay, let's do a quick heal. Oops. Okay, so Golden Rune 4. Excellent starting point. Level 1. Level 2. Level 2. Level 1. Level 1. Level 2, level 3, and a level 1. So that was 4 level 1s, 2 level 2s, a level 3, and a level 4. Plus, I got all the runes from killing the wolves. And, as I mentioned, anytime you clear a pack of animals, if you used a flask, you get it back. Fantastic pathing. Now, by me coming down here, it gives me access to a new map piece. So let's go ahead and go grab that real quick. Another skull to crack open. And this area that we are entering into is called Mistwood. Oh, one thing I do want to do, I want to craft some Roa Raisin. These are the items I told you about that will allow you to heal your horse. So you're going to want to make sure to have some of them available to you at all times. And I'm going to put them right here in my inventory slot. I don't think my horse needs to be healed at the moment, but I just wanted to make sure I had the ability to do so. There's another scarab. Ground Slam is the Ash Award that one gives. I've never used it, so I don't know much about it. Tarnished Gold Sunflower. A couple of tears. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Now we've got ourselves our first bear. The great thing is this bear is so worried about that tree, he's not even going to care about us. So let's grab what he's protecting. Nomadic Warriors Cookbook 4. Let's take a look and see what that is. That gives us fetid pots and roped fetid pots. Fetid pots are, I believe they're rot pots for the most part, but I'm not 100% positive. I've never actually used them. But we did also get a new map piece. So this fills in this particular area, but it also opens up the door here to Caelid. And that's what we're going to want to actually get into next. You can see there's already something on the map for us, but we're going to actually take the road that's going to take this right down here. We're going to pick up the map piece that's going to fill in this area. We're going to pick up a golden seed, get access to a few merchants. But before we do that, there's another church we need to find, and that's right up here. One other quick thing that I want to point out. Right here is a very important location. I don't want to tell you why, for fear that it might spoil things. But you will want to try and clear that location. At the very least, there is a golden seed there, but there is a key item there that you will need for the story of the game. So if you should find your way there, I highly recommend it. But be careful, it can be difficult, especially early in the game. Alright, so let's go to our next church. Come on, big boy. Hatchet really comes in handy. I could have used my bow, but I decided I wanted to save my arrows. I'm not a big fan of boars. That's the reason why I killed him. The boars in this game can be very nasty. Okay, so we've got ourselves another church here. Now, as I've told you before, churches are very, very important. They all have something of importance. In this case, we've got a site of grace. We've got another sacred tier right here. And then over here, we have the Flask of Wondrous Physic. You're only going to get one of these, but these provide you the option to mix two different tiers together to give you additional abilities. Now let me show you what I mean. Let's go to the Site of Grace. Go down to Flasks. And, oops, sorry, not Flasks. Mix Wondrous Physic. So in this, you have two slots. And you choose two tiers that you're going to find. Either we found two of them right at the Minor Erd tree over in Mistwood, or there was one given to us along with the Wondrous Physic Flask. You are going to find others by killing specific boss types. And I'll talk about those at the very end of the video. In this case, we've got these two. Crimson Crystal Tier, which restores half of total HP. Green Spill, which temporarily boosts stamina recovery. And Spiked Cracked, which enhances charged attacks. Now, you're going to, as I said, find plenty of others. Some that help you against lightning. Some that help you against poison. Some that you get the idea. They all provide different effects. And you're only going to get one of these flasks. So you're going to want to potentially change what's in the flask over time, depending upon who you're fighting against. And giving you a better option to deal with that particular enemy or boss. I'm going to go ahead and put in the Crimson Crystal Tier and the Green Spill Crystal Tier. Okay. Let me go ahead and move time towards the morning. Okay. Now, right behind this church is a Ash of War that I highly recommend for anyone that is going to have a blade. Just gotta make sure to find it. Pretty sure it's up here. Oh, there it is. So this is the Sacred Blade. It will throw out a Holy Slash out in front of your blade. If you're going to be using a sword of any kind, definitely recommend it. So we're going to use a couple of well springs here. I could kill all of these wolves if I wanted to, but I'm not going to for right now. Another Trina Lily. Make sure to grab that. So I'm going to use both of these well springs and then this one right here as well. And this is going to put us right at the entrance to Caelid. Now, as I said, Caelid is a very, very dangerous place. So I am going to do everything in my power to stay away from everybody. Until one specific point. Do not go to that church yet. Until you feel like you're ready. That's all I'm going to say. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to come here and pick up the Site of Grace here at this location. But be careful you don't go running too far so that you don't aggro that bird right there. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the map. What we need to do is to get over to this part of the road so that we can head straight down and eventually get access to a couple of additional grace points. But before we even do that, I'm going to head straight down the road. Right up there on that hill is one of the merchants that we need. So let's go grab that first. And in this part of Caelid, the best thing is to just stay on the road. Unless the road is already full of really bad things. So we've got another grace point here. Okay, another grace point over here. I'm going to sit at it so that I can reset the world. And then we're going to go up the hill. And there we go. And there's another grace point inside the house. We're going to grab that. And we've got ourselves a new merchant.
Well, it's been an age since. How can I help?
So as we're going to see here, regular arrows just like everybody else, but he has serpent arrows, and serpent arrows are your poison arrows. So rather than ever needing to craft them, you can always buy them right here. He actually doesn't have any cookbooks to sell, so I just wanted to make sure that we got this on the map. The other thing to point out is he does have a specific torch called the Beast Repellent Torch, and this can be helpful, if you want to just prevent dogs, wolves, or other similar types of beasts from attacking you as you're going through a cave or a tunnel or what have you. Alright, let's make our... Let's go back. There actually is a map piece right here, so I'm going to go ahead and go grab that real quick. And I do mean real quick. I do not... Caelid is my least favorite location in the entire game. They send you here way too early before you're ready to deal with it. Alright, so let's go back to Caelid Ruins. And then you automatically feel like a failure because you're not doing enough damage. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to head down this road so that we can open up the map and see where the next map piece is. Again, I'm going to be very, very cognizant of things around me, such as that. Aha! Back on the road. And we've got ourselves another site of grace, so let's stop here. Sure nothing's following. We should be good. So we've opened up the map. We're just going to continue right on down the road. Let me remove these from my... There we go. Just wanted to get them off the map. Now the good thing is as we continue down this road, we are going to find other sites of grace. Not necessarily right next to the road, but they are definitely here. Now, as you go down this road, you're going to see that fire. Head straight to that fire. That is another merchant.
Welcome, dear customer. Yes, right this way. Welcome, valued customer. Come, please. I'm hungry.
Now, this guy has fire arrows, so that's extremely important. He also sells poison bone darts, which can certainly help if you don't have any arrows. He also sells poison stone and poison stone clumps, which you can actually throw at people to cause damage. He also, and this is making you aware, boluses are what is going to remove a status effect. And in this particular case, it's Scarlet Rot. So the preserving bolus will remove the Scarlet Rot effect. Okay. Now, it just so happens that he is right near a site of grace. So it will not be hard for you to get to him. Okay. Excellent. By getting and doing this, we've now found the next map piece. We want to head straight to that map piece. And we want to do everything in our power to stay away from danger. And in this case, that means staying off the road. You don't necessarily need to head straight there. But it does help. Because those guys right there are really, really bad. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm actually heading almost directly there. Oh, there's an item down here. I actually didn't know about that. And I almost got rotted for doing so. Yep, there's our map piece. Okay, now this is where things get interesting. First of all, here is another merchant. And this one also sells fire arrows. So you've got a couple of different choices for fire arrows. Actually, no, he doesn't. The other one does. But this one does sell the Warrior's Cookbook 15, which allows you to create rot bone arrows. And there are certain enemies that are very weak to rot. So something for you to keep in mind. You may want to end up buying this particular cookbook. And I'm going to provide you a list in the corresponding article that will be associated with this series. All of the different cookbooks that you'll need if you want to craft your own arrows. So between these three merchants here in Caelid, you should be in really good shape. Alright, I'm going to go grab another Site of Grace here real quickly. And then we're going to head for an item that is extremely important for anyone that's going to be an archer. Okay, let's take a look at the map. Alright, you'll see this big castle here. This is Castle Redmane. I don't want to tell you much about it, but it is a major, major point of the story in the game. Just before the bridge is a tower. At the top of this tower, there is a talisman called the Archer's Sting. And it adds damage to all ranged weapons. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of between 10 and 20%. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I could look it up, though, for you, and I'll make sure to put it in the document, or in the webpage. We need to head here. However, there are soldiers everywhere. There are ginormous dogs everywhere. If we stay down this side, we should be able to get there without too much hassle. We're going to have to pay attention to the birds. And then once we're there, a battle is going to ensue. We can sit there and wait for the battle to finish and collect the runes as people are dying. It's an excellent farming location for an early part of the game. But before we do that, there is a golden seed right here at this Y point. So let's go grab that first, and then I'll walk you through the next part. There's still another thing on my map. Oh, I forgot to remove that one. Okay. Okay, so there's our golden seed. And apparently I got too close to a bird. So, I am now going to head towards that bird that's perched out on the cliffside. But not get too close. Because I'm already being chased by a bird. So that tower is what I'm trying to get to. I don't know if you could hear that, but there was a horn in the background. That was the soldiers going to war with the big dogs. And you can see the health bars dropping. That's great for us. So all we have to do is sit here and let it happen. Now, we do, though, still need to be stealthy about it, because there are 2 soldiers right up there at the top of the ladder. And we are going to want to kill them before we climb that ladder. And I'm going to want to try and use my mighty shot if at all possible. Now, the best way to do this... I got caught. Okay. Well, I'm going to sit here and let some death happen. And then as soon as enough people have died and I've collected enough runes, we'll go ahead and deal with the bow shots up top. Okay, so we're dealing with these guys up top. I'm just waiting for the last one to clear himself so that I can start shooting at him again. Now, while I was sitting there waiting, I actually got just under 2,000 additional runes from the battle before. This is great stuff. Now, if I wanted to, I could try and... There we go. Alright, so those 2 guys are now taken care of. There are, of course, a whole bunch of soldiers out here that I could try and get some additional runes from if I wanted to. But I need to play it safe. I'm going to pull out my hatchet here. Because at the very top, where we're going to get this talisman from, there is at least 1, if not 2, additional soldiers. That was an additional smithing stone 3. One, 2. And just like that, we got everybody. And we got the Archer's Sting Talisman. So let's go ahead and put that on. Alright, so our current short bow damage is 95 and 8 from attribute scaling. We put that on. Still shows the same, but you are going to get an additional damage. Raises attack power of arrows and bolts. So, excellent stuff. Now, I'm going to go grab some additional soldiers here just to get some additional runes. And the other great thing is when you're ready to deal with Redmane Castle, you already have the Grace Point ready for you. And just like that, I got 3 additional soldiers. And a whole bunch of... Let's see, I got another 1,300 runes. It was nice and simple. Plus, there's another skull down here. This has been a very, very profitable. Except for now, I'm in trouble. So now it's time to go on. So let's head back to the Church of Ella. And we'll talk about what's left. The first thing is we should go ahead and level up as much as we possibly can. So let's go ahead and clear out all of the golden runes that we've picked up. And let's see where that puts us with respect to leveling up. I'm going to go ahead and pop all of the 4s, 3s, and 2s. I'm going to leave the 1s. I tend to keep the 1s around in case I need like a couple of hundred here, a couple hundred there to get me over the top of another level. So with all the runes that we've collected and the 3 caverns that we cleared, plus that area right there at the tower, we've got 18,000 to spend. Let's see where that puts us. I actually recommend not putting any additional points into endurance. At this point, with 1 additional point in mind, which was what we just did, we should focus all of our points on vigor and dexterity. I'm going to go ahead and get vigor up to the same level as dexterity. So we're now at level 15. Let's go ahead and get vigor to level 20, or to 20 points. We still have 2-3 more levels to go ahead and go. We'll put another 2 points into dexterity. We are now level 21 with a vigor of 20 and a dexterity of 18. Our health is now 652. And our attack power has gone up tremendously. Now, this is not necessarily the best spot to be in for the first boss, but it is a... You could very easily go and deal with the first boss this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly that. And I'm going to show you what it would look like. What is the damage output? I do not expect to actually beat this boss, because I've never beaten this boss with a bow before. But I want you to see what the damage output is of the short bow and the long bow. I'm going to remove the hatchet from my inventory altogether. And let's just take a look together. So, we're going to go to Stormhill Shack, and we're going to head to the castle. There's really only one way in, and I highly recommend you do it with a horse, because there are too many soldiers to combat for you to actually have to deal with them one-on-one. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the horse here real quick. And then I'm going to run up the road. Right on past these guys. And then we make a hard left. And run along this cliffside. Now, if you're fast enough, you won't get hit by anything, because they're too slow to react. And then I'm going to run along the wall and duck in. And then there is a site of grace right here. Grab the hatchet just in case. There we go. I just wanted to be careful. Okay. So, equipment-wise, let me remove the hatchet. We've got 76 regular arrows and 10 fire. We've got plenty for what we need. We have 4 health physics. I am going to readjust my physics, though, because we're not going to use nearly as much magic or focus or ashes of war in this boss fight. You might use more in others, but in this boss fight we're probably not going to use that much, so I want to make sure that I have enough health. The other thing is, I want to... Do I have enough? I do. Okay. But I did get another Sacred Tear. Okay. So we should now be at +2 on our flasks. Okay. Let's go see. I will tell you I'm going to start with the longbow so that I can get a mighty shot off at the very beginning. I am also going to skip the cutscene so I don't spoil it for you. So 86 points of damage. This is the thing that you're going to have to do. That was very badly timed by my part, on my part. And I'll be honest, I haven't fought him in a while, so I don't remember his movesets. I caught against the wall. Now I'm caught on a sword. Alright, we made it to phase 2.
Art of passing skill. Warrior blood must truly run in thy veins. Tarnished.
Oh, AoE. Yep. Bad timing. Yeah. Still, considering that was my first attempt on this guy in probably a month, and it was my first attempt on this guy with a bow, I got him down to 1/3 health. So, it's not a lot of damage. I probably could absolutely stand to go out and level up a few more times. But you'll see what you're going to get if you try and be an archer with a particular boss like this. Excuse me. One thing to keep in mind, and I'm going to put a lot of additional things for mid-game to discuss in the article that'll be associated, and I'll make sure to put the article URL in the description of all these videos that are going to go up on YouTube. I only have access to 1 talisman. You get up to 4 slots before the end of the game. There is another talisman very close by that might be of value to archers, and that is the Turtle Talisman. It provides stamina recovery. 20%, actually it's 17.7%. Very, very valuable for archers as well. In addition, there's a number of times there where I could have potentially used barrage instead of just regular shots. But I felt like timing-wise, I had a better opportunity with just regular short bow than to go down this path. Now, here's the other thing to keep in mind as well. Because of the fact that you're an archer, you got to keep replenishing your arrows, which means you might only get 1 or 2 attempts against this guy, maybe 3, before you're going to have to go out and farm to get more arrows. Something to keep in mind here about being an archer. That's why I always make sure to have a secondary weapon. Doing a bow-only run, for example, like Lobos Jr. did, and I'll provide his YouTube URL and actually direct link to his run in my description as well. That is an extremely difficult fight. He did it extremely well, but he also went all around the world to get all of the best things from the very, very beginning and got them all leveled up to max. So, an archery build can be a lot of fun, but it is going to be difficult at times. Just something to keep in mind. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed this series, and hopefully you'll take a look at some of my other getting started videos, as well as even my first playthrough of Elden Ring. Thank you very much.